But he was talking about how when Bitcoin hits $1 million per Bitcoin, that's 1 cent a sat. And on that night, say that happens at like 8:17, PM on a Tuesday night, and you log on to Swan or River, or Coinbase or Fidelity or Bank of America, wherever they're selling Bitcoin at this point, and it's 1 cent a sat, and you're like, why wouldn't I pay 2 cents a sat? Like that's very different from why wouldn't I pay 2 million a Bitcoin? But 1 cent a sat sounds cheap. And we're so far from 1 cent a sat. But why wouldn't it be 2 cents a sat? Why wouldn't it go to that on the overnight? Like you'd be
Right.
like, shit, it hit 1 cent a sat. Fuck, I'll pay 2 cents. And the ETF does that. And I don't care about the ETF too much in terms of I don't know. I don't know how to I don't think it's important for Bitcoin, but it seems to be interesting for retail maybe or institutional investment. I don't know if one's guaranteed or coming, but it does change the price around
It's a
Bitcoin.
mixed bag.
It's a mixed
Hmm.
bag.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting vector, but especially around self-custody. But um, it changes the price point around Bitcoin. Right now you can go on GBTC and it's obviously on a discount, but it's like $36 a share, right? And you need 1,000 shares to represent ownership in a Bitcoin. But a lot of people are going to see $36 a share, and some of these are going to be 36 cents a share or 36 $3.60 a share, and a lot of people are going to be very much. It's going to be a lot easier for people to see a 10x or 100x or 1,000x at those price points, and sort of the future in fiat terms with those numbers. Um, and so it would have been interesting if Bitcoin had that built into the protocol where the unit was the SAT instead of why
Yeah.
we made the unit 100 million of something. I'm not sure why we made that the thing we talk about. And it's because, that thing back in the day was so not valuable. You could buy 6,000, 2,000 Satoshi Bitcoin for like $5 back in the day or whatever it was. But, in the future, the lower time preference would have been to still go by the Satoshi as the unit of account. I think that
Yeah.
would have been a
I
little lower
think,
time preference.
yeah, I hear what you're saying. I disagree with it personally.
Which
I
is
mean,
great because I probably disagree with it if I talked about it another day too.
yeah, yeah. But I think even though 99% of Bitcoin's existence, people think in sats, and like the first 1% people actually think in Bitcoins or multiple whole coins. Like I think that's essential though, because I think if in those first 3, 5, 10 years or whatever, people were only thinking in sats, not Bitcoins, then I don't think, because I think it's super
Well, they
unit
wouldn't
bias is
know. They
such.
they they would just be
Yeah, they
thinking in
would.
Bitcoins and they wouldn't know. And we would just be on a
Yeah,
longer
but
term trajectory. Right now, Bitcoin, 100 million Bitcoin would just be worth, or it would be worth whatever it's worth. It just, we would have started with a lower unit, a smaller unit. But it's kind of like
yeah, but
most.
I think to your point though of the giveaway sats are free, no one will care about it. I think that's the same idea here, that if you say, Bitcoin pizza day, right, 10,000 Bitcoin for two pizzas, that's 5,000 Bitcoin a pizza. If you say, oh, okay, what's 100 million times 5,000? That's 500 million. So okay, like look, okay, like, oh, 500 billion Bitcoins for a pizza. It's like
It's just, right. It just would have been an
it's
exchange rate.
absurd. Yeah,
It is
yeah.
absurd, but we would have eventually gotten to at least a less absurd place. But I think what's hard, like when people are like, "Oh wow, a Bitcoin's really expensive," I want to be like, "So is $1 million bill." But no one thinks about how they're trading or buying their way to hopefully $1 million bill, right? You go and you work
Yeah.
for $15 an hour, or $50 an hour, or $100 an hour, or $5 an hour, whatever you earn, and you're trading your way towards more money, right? And a lot of people think of a millionaire as a lot of money in America, and maybe it still is, maybe it isn't. But my point is like they're not thinking about how do I get $1 million bill. They're more than happy to like get $100 bill or a $10 bill. They're not like, oh, I don't want that because it's not the whole thing. And or I can't
Yeah.
have it yet
Yeah.
because I can't afford the whole thing, therefore I don't want it, or I'm not gonna buy it today, or I'm not gonna start my journey towards it. So it sounds like a big journey when we're talking about the 100 million of the thing, when the 3 million of the thing is just representative of how much you 1 million sats or whatever it is, it's just trading at that rate. You're just trading in at whatever value you can, and you don't have to buy the whole thing. So why did we colloquially coalesce around 100 million of the unit? It's just interesting to me. And maybe the whole thing would have backfired if we took my approach. Maybe
Yeah.
Satoshi really spent, I wonder how long he spent thinking, not just the 21 million based on sort of that formula, but whether it was going to be, whether we would describe the unit around the Bitcoin or the Satoshi. And I don't think he
Yeah.
named the Satoshi. He just knew that the Bitcoin had 8 decimals. Right. And I think
Right.
he was looking at it from that perspective, right? This thing has 8 decimals. Whereas maybe we just talked about the decimal and built it up from scratch and said the decimal makes up the thing. And then we would have a very different unit price bias. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I get it. I think about unit bias all the time. In fact, I probably should make more videos talking about it because most of my videos, including this one, it's going to have like a bunch of zeros in the title, right? And it's why to bring people in. But the funny thing is that I think about, Cedric, is that I think the whole reason political currency has survived as long as it has is because it specifically hijacks unit price, and it survives at first by doing it over a very slow time period, and then as inflation increases, the only thing that's changing is the timeline, right? There is no technical difference between hyperinflation and regular inflation. The only difference is time, right? The only difference is that the time that the unit bias is shifting fast enough that you realize it's happening, right? So, as an example, to finish out this point, is that in 1932, the average household income was $17 a week. Okay, but my grandmother was born 1932. Okay, like she's alive. She's across the street from me right now. It's like that's her lifetime. $17 a week. Okay, now an average American family probably I don't know, like $1,700 a week is good, right? I mean that's 84 grand a year, right? I mean after taxes, that's like 50 grand. I mean probably a
that
lot of
puts you in a
families
very
could
high percentile in America.
For the whole family,
Yeah.
husband and wife, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, we did
But the purchasing power of
100x.
that 84,000 or whatever that comes out to is
Right.
way less.
Yeah.
And
Right.
people think people realize like how much worse off we are as a society now than we were then economically.
Right.
Maybe not in comfort.
Yeah.
Maybe not in comfort, but in pure economic terms, way worse than the Great Depression ever was. Part of that, I think, the evolution of technology. I mean, like most people in America probably have more resources at their disposal than a king 1,000 years ago. More manpower, at least, more horsepower. In terms of even just getting on a public bus.
Or in terms of hosting a podcast that could be globally listened to by people where you can talk to the world's, I mean, it's like you and me, we get to talk to the world's smartest people, like the best king or emperor 500 years ago. They couldn't talk to, who they would interpret
even
as
if
the
they
top
had
minds
agreed
of the
upon
world.
it. Yeah, it would be hard to arrange and coordinate and keep the conversation going. And whether that was over mail or whatever, and it wouldn't be as spontaneous and, organic or, no, for sure. And again, that's just an unlocking of knowledge. And that unlocking of knowledge creates value in and of itself that I think we haven't even begun to comprehend what Bitcoin will afford human civilization. And so then that just then flows back into, so at that point, it's not that like Bitcoin creates all this value. It does, I think it helps unlock it, but the value is there to be created within mankind. Bitcoin is just a more accurate register of capturing it and harnessing it. So, and then re-expressing it. So, mankind would get there without Bitcoin, I think eventually. It would just, the idea of Bitcoin, if Bitcoin fails, the idea will be recreated somewhere else. In a way that doesn't create inflation, because the reason I don't think Bitcoin could ever be copied or shitcoins don't matter from a monetary perspective is that to have uninflatable money can only be discovered once. If you discover it twice, it's therefore inflatable. So if you only have 21 million, you can't do it again. So Yeah, I just think I think it's one of the first true paradigm shifts in humanity.
Bitcoin is incredible and it's incredibly important, which is why it means a lot that you're watching this video and you're taking the time. I do this because I believe it is a really, really important innovation that we've discovered a way to not have a single point of failure at global base layer money. See, fiat money, political currency units, and gold, all other forms of money up to this point in history have had a single point of failure. This has been the largest monetary problem in human history for the last 4,000 years. And now we have Bitcoin, and Bitcoin solves that single point of failure problem. And now, therefore, we have a new single point of failure problem, and that is how do we custody and store that Bitcoin properly for the long term in a safe and secure way that brings peace of mind. That's why I work at the Bitcoin Advisor. If you were to be hit by a bus, does your spouse, do your kids, do your loved ones and beneficiaries know how to access your Bitcoin? Do you have a proper self-custody storage method to where there is no single point of failure? Not from yourself, not from your seed device, not from where your seed phrase is stored. Have you considered these questions? Have you gotten your UTXOs managed? Do you have jurisdictional arbitrage? Have you considered all the trust, taxes, and estate planning requirements that are associated with becoming a high net worth person? Because if you are buying Bitcoin right now, you are going to become a high net worth person. Are you prepared for the amount of Bitcoin you have to skyrocket in value 2x, 5x, 10x, or 100x eventually? That's the time horizon you should have. And so you need to be preparing today for that future. How are you going to custody your Bitcoin? How are you going to leave that Bitcoin for your future generations? Because after all, that's what we do this for, right? You're buying Bitcoin for your kids. You're buying it for your grandkids. And so I highly recommend you start thinking in those long-term time periods now, because companies are coming, charities are coming, high net worth individuals are coming, and all of them are going to realize that having an allocation to a multi-sig collateral custody vault is going to be something that is of serious consideration for them. So once you understand Bitcoin is a beautiful innovation for not having a single point of failure at the base layer currency, now you have to start seriously considering, how do I have my custody stored where there is no single point of failure? Okay, if you want to learn more about that, please click the link in the description. I have dozens of pages of free educational content for you and videos. I'm happy to help in that free way. And then if you want individual help, I'm also happy to help you join the Bitcoin Advisor, where you can be an ongoing client. You can become one of my clients, and I'd be happy to help you in the years to come to make sure your Bitcoin's protected, to where no matter what, no matter if thieves or scammers or spammers or yourself or your family or whoever, no matter whether it's due to theft or loss, misallocation, misplacement, or just other mistakes, I'm happy to help you and be that voice of reason in the coming years ahead. So click the link in the description. I'd be happy to help. Check it out. Thanks.